For years now, Five Nights at Freddy's has introduced numerous animatronic characters to us. But funny enough, most of the time, they are not acting like typical animatronics. Whether it be wandering around trying to take out the nearest night guard, or them walking off their stage period. Keep in mind, a real-life animatronic is less of a robot and more a system of tubes moved by air. Most of the time. Secret of the Mimic broke the mold by depicting animatronics functioning properly in their natural environment, whether they're singing, dancing, handing out hints, or accepting tickets. Or at least, we see their proper behavior for a little while until the mimic itself crawls inside and overtakes their bodies, turning them from mindless automatons to merciless murder machines. But one of the most interesting animatronics of the lot, no, the most interesting if we're going off of what they do and what befalls them, would be Nurse Dollie, a robotic recycler built to assist in breaking down trash into cash.
Trash to cash!
In reality, Dollie is one of the most unique characters not just in Secret of the Mimic but in FNAF in general, as we are able to see how she functions, what she is built for, and then watch the slow downfall one step at a time, torn apart piece by piece, broken down, and abandoned, turning into a horrendous, unrecognizable thing before its untimely demise. Though can you call it a demise if it wasn't even ever alive? So, who is Nurse Dollie? Nurse Dollie is an animatronic built for the service hospital, which also doubles as a recycling center, which is themed after a doll hospital, as is Nurse Dollie herself, as the name would imply. She has peach skin and brown hair made of metal strands built to look like tresses. Her eyes are green ovals with little lashes, and the ability to blink, though as of Secret of the Mimic her eyelids are a little cockeyed. She has brown eyebrows, dark peach cheeks and a nose, sort of coral pink colored lips, a hinged jaw, and a row of white teeth protecting a black speaker inside. She has hands with a thumb, but the fingers are only painted on, and sort of like these coil-like tubes between her joints, almost like the wearable suits have, but other than some concept art, there's no indication that Dollie was made to be worn. She wears a green dress with a white painted and molded shirt underneath, and she even has a little Dollie name tag. She also wears a white and green nurse's cap, and white painted on socks with big black Mary Jane shoes. Now, as you can probably see, Dollie's feet are welded to a stand that zips around on a track leading around the service hospital. She is not built to walk on her own, though she is capable of bending over and crouching a little bit. As we will see later, this impedes Mimic's use of the body, leading to him accessorizing for the occasion. There's a pack on the back of her that's connected to her wrists by hoses. Now, these look like air hoses, but I'm pretty sure it's a battery pack connected to her hands, as if you look, she has these little shock pads on her palms. These seem primarily used to operate the doors, but they also might be used for other reasons. We'll come back to that momentarily. Dollie is in remarkably good condition, largely because she's untouched on her track, because the moment she's taken off of it, she starts getting tears and dings all throughout her body. Personality-wise, Dollie is not sentient as far as we're aware. She isn't capable of free thought or autonomy, such as with the Glamrocks, and she isn't haunted, as with many of the upper animatronics. However, that doesn't mean she doesn't have characterization presented to her through pre-recorded voice lines, in which Dollie is depicted as compassionate, caring, and kind, as any good nurse would be, cooing warmly over her animatronic patients and quick to assure them and line up the coming treatment. She's very friendly and cheery.
Time to do my rounds. Describe your pain on a scale of 0 to 10. Take your medicine. I seem to have misplaced my patient. I recommend shock therapy.
And she even delivers bad news with a smile.
You need a lobotomy.
Dollie doesn't have a bad bone in her body until her endoskeleton gets replaced. She's actually quite sweet. But it's unfortunately skin deep since she is at her core a mindless robot. Though keep in mind that without the Mimic's homicidal tendencies, Dollie doesn't want to hurt you. She is just doing her job. And I guess since I don't really have anywhere else to mention it, and I've tried to work this in twice, I should mention here, to get this out of the way, there is a popular theory that Jackie, Big Top, and Dollie are based off of David, Edwin, and Fiona respectively. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but Dollie neither acts nor sounds like Fiona. Sure, they're both depicted as good caretakers and her hair almost looks styled like hers, but considering how many animatronics and tapes have Fiona's voice, it's odd that Dollie doesn't if she's supposed to be a stand-in of her. But moving on. But on to what she does at Murray's costume Manor. Here is Dollie's introduction as presented by Edwin Murray himself and shown soon after her initial encounter.
I'm very excited about our next showroom. Welcome to the world's first recycling center. Basically, we take trash and turn it into cash. To explain how it all works, let me introduce one of our many hard-working recycling automations. Say hello, Nurse Dollie.
Hello, Nurse Dollie.
That gets me every time. I thought it would be fun to go with a doll hospital theme. Pretty neat, huh? Dollie, tell them what you do.
I am recycling. Edwin Murray coined the term, and it will soon be an industry standard. I take broken stuff and turn it into new stuff. So much money is saved by reusing these old parts that we call it going green.
Because money is green, not the old parts.
Edwin is a genius. Wink.
Oh, get back to work, you.
Now, despite what she and Edwin say, Dollie herself doesn't actually do any recycling or repair work. She is instead a diagnosis tool that assesses damage for the actual employees who work there at the recycling center to then fix. This is why work has gotten so far behind since the place shut down, despite Dollie assumedly being operable the whole time. Though it could have also been because she was stuck on her track. It should be noted, however, that somehow the admin station, which falls through the ceiling, has been moved into the doll hospital. And there is a digityper with similar damage to the one Jackie attacks, the one that fell behind a wall. Someone must have moved them down here, but I'd put more bets on the Mimic or something else doing it than Dollie, because, you know, the track. Basically, Dollie gives the broken suit, bot or elsewise, a good scanning and decides on what should be done with it.
Scanning. Inoperable. Send to furnace. Refurbishment required. Salvage. Further maintenance needed. Disassemble. No disassemble.
It's then shipped off to the human employees, who are working in less than savory conditions, forced to work incredibly long hours, such as having a 40-hour work week labeled as a red flag. Employees are also not allowed to leave until they reach a certain quota, leaving them stuck underground until they do. But when it comes to Dollie herself, only one employee really has anything negative to say about her, and it's an unexpected complaint. I can't take it, writes, "Barb, I swear if I hear that song one more time, I'm going to tear that Dollie off her hinges. I have no clue how much longer I can take it here." Yes, Dollie has a song that she sings, but we don't hear it until a later segment in the game. And due to some reasons, I'm going to wait a little longer before I play it, but assume between tasks, Dollie occasionally sings, probably while in standby mode. The recycling facility seems to be functioning well, likely because of the arm-twisted back-breaking labor. But then the Fazbear project fell through, WA started swiping miserable employees, and the place shut down, leaving the recycling center abandoned. And slowly the work started piling up with nobody to do it, as by the time we see it in-game, Dollie says they are behind on clear over 1,000 tasks. Whoops, I really fudged the numbers. It is actually 4,625 tasks. Yeah, I'd say a good bit over 1,000. With her circling this little area, functional but stuck behind mounds of work. And that's when Arnold drops in. Arnold, the technician sent to retrieve the Mimic blueprints, is wearing a Captain Springlock suit and performing in the Foxy Puppet Show when the theater collapses. He blacks out and wakes up in the doll hospital, where the spring lock is set up in a rack and Dollie's coming to assess him. This exchange follows our initial introduction.
Oh, no, no, no! Poor Captain! Another spring lock failure? According to your records, this is not your first visit to the service hospital. Scanning. Error. It appears you have a foreign object wedged inside. Now don't you worry. We will get you all sorted out. Stay right there, and I will consult the service manual. Good news! The procedure is simple. We must clear out the foreign material. First, we will blend up the foreign object. Then, you'll need a stringent steam clean to soften up the remaining organic material so we can scoop it out. Finally, we will flush out your interior with a power hose, then give you a nice long soak in the bleach bath. You will be ship-shape in no time. Please wait here until your number is called. There are 4,625 tasks ahead of you.
And yes, before you ask, that horrifying treatment does sound a lot like it was made specifically to dispose of a body. Blending it up, steaming and rinsing it away, and then bleaching the evidence left behind. And the scooping line isn't just a cute little nod to sister location, I fear. Though with Edwin's nonchalance to the dangers of the springlock suits, just put teens in them like we always do. Until Fiona brings it up, I wouldn't be surprised at all if this treatment for springlock failure was made entirely aware of what it would be used for. But thankfully for Arnold, Dollie is very behind. And also thankfully, he is not stuck in the suit or he would have probably been sitting there for a long time. Until or unless the mimic found him and was able to recognize him through the suit. He leaves the suit and heads out and onto the catwalk. This is where he watches the automated introduction from Edwin Murray and featuring Dollie, which I played earlier. Then he heads inside the recycling center, or Dollie's closed-off area. A maze created by junk with a track weaving around it. Dollie will be circling around the track, prone but seemingly drawn to your location. If she runs into you, she will smack you with her electric paddle hands. Likely assuming that you're an animatronic up and walking around and giving you a controlled shock in response. Now you may not believe it, but Dollie isn't being controlled by the mimic at this time, both because of her natural and automated patrolling and because of the detail in her jump scare now compared to later. The shock pad specifically, Dollie gives you a controlled shock, but once the mimic's in control, he more aggressively grapples you. And we also know this because we can actually see the moment when the mimic takes over. And now. After Arnold gets the door open, he comes around to find Dollie's broken feet sitting on the track beside it. Like Dollie ripped herself off and walked away, or more likely that something else ripped her off. Arnold enters the recycling center when all of a sudden Dollie comes staggering out from the back and gives chase. Now clearly being warned by the mimic. If the change of behavior didn't tip you off, then the endoskeleton feet certainly do. As soon as Mimic gets in, Dollie degrades fast, with nicks all over her paint job and her skirt tearing, now revealing the hoop that's holding it. But the biggest change is that she's sporting a brand new pair of feet, which have cute little elevated heels. You would think that this would be to mimic Dollie's heels, but she doesn't have any. On closer inspection, I think these heels are out of necessity instead of style. Look how close Dollie's broken legs are to the mimic's feet. If he was flat-footed, he would be struggling. These things would be catching on him, catching on the floor, and with the weird gait while in Dollie, it would be rough. But the heels give him a little more room to work with, and that's without exposing too much in the skeleton leg. M2 knows what it's like to have his legs bashed in. He doesn't want to go through that again. But that doesn't mean that walking in Dollie is easy. His swaying steps show exactly how the body is not made for it, leading him to have to toddle and sway just to get around. But he does get around, searching for Arnold as he's forced to prime the compactor to leave. After he gathers enough trash, he heads down to a big conveyor belt to clear the way when Dollie drops in. She teeters and almost falls over, telegraphing that Arnold is going to have to knock her back into the open furnace, and telegraphing Mimic's continued streak of clumsiness. Dollie tries to make it to you across the conveyor, but she's slowed down by her awkward walking, giving him time to pull levers and drop cubes of trash that she then trips on, pushing her back until she falls over the edge, holding on with unwieldy hands and trying to pull herself back up until the last lever sends a barrage of trash cubes down and knocks her into the molten metal, where she melts away. With Dollie gone, Arnold starts heading down further into the facility to leave, heading down the lifts closer to the boiling pots to find the elevator up and out. And then Dollie punches her way straight through a wall. Dollie's mangled body pulls itself through the oozing wound on the wall. The pretty nurse is now severely disfigured. Her hair is mostly gone, along with some of her fingers and most of her face. The metal is sloughing off so easily that it's as jelly-like as melted cheese, dripping down her in globs like lava. I have absolutely zero idea how the cap is faring so well, because everything she's touched starts to melt in her clutch. It's just too much. By which I mean just a touch of her superheated body would severely burn human flesh. It would be an unbearable pain, for a short while, because you surely wouldn't last long, not between the crushing force of her superheated metal limbs. I don't recall if she's been officially named, but the melted Dollie has been given the moniker of Molten Dollie, and it fits. She's barely holding on, merely a liquid shell clinging to the mimic's frame, which is also superheated but shows no sign of melting. Dollie's body is virtually destroyed, but she is still capable of chasing after Arnold, and does. He races down a walkway and up onto a conveyor belt as Dollie tears through boxes and trash and is lost amongst them, only to appear shortly afterwards to chase him on another conveyor, upon which he escapes, but he doesn't avoid her for long. She moves off of the belts and into the rooms between them and the elevator, filled with chains to alert of anyone coming through, stalking around as her own metal plating drips off. She cools slightly and some of her form darkens, but she is still in that state of being extremely hot and very dangerous. And it's at this time, as Arnold's trying to crawl through, that you may hear Dollie start to sing, or the mimic sing Dollie's song. I'd like to thank Crooked Art for posting a video with Dollie's voice lines, including the entirety, I think, of this song. I don't know if the lines are in order because, well, as you will hear, it's a little hard to distinguish the song amongst the garbled rattles of the disillusioned mimic. You're sneaking around as she wanders through, door to door, peeking in windows, knowing you're coming and trying her hardest to catch you before you make it to the elevator. But you, or Arnold, does make it to the elevator. Dollie races out to try to catch him, but the door shuts before she's able to grab him, slamming into it before the elevator lifts. It looks like he's in the clear momentarily, But unfortunately, this is Murray's costume Manor, where the mascots are hideous, the hours are long, and the elevators seldom make it to their destinations. It isn't long before it suddenly clunks to a stop, and Arnold is forced to repair the elevator under the instruction of Fiona's repair tapes. He does so, and the lift starts to rise again. And down comes Dollie right on top of the elevator, where she starts punching down, trying to break through. Bits of her are still dripping through the grated ceiling as she does. Stuck underneath those drippings, Arnold works on the elevator again, managing to speed it up to compensate for the newfound weight. The elevator begins to rapidly raise. Seeing what's happening, the mimic then rips itself out of Dollie's body. Noticeably, she still has her feet, but I think this is just one of those model oversights that you're not supposed to see, and leaps to safety, leaving her to smash against the ceiling when the elevator reaches its stop. Not entirely crushed, but in absolutely no functional state. Dollie's past the point of repairs, good for nothing more than scrap to melt down and recycle into something else. But between the state of the factory and where her remains are ditched, it's unlikely that she'll be used for anything of the sort. And this is where Dollie lies. Less than an hour ago, a fully functional animatronic capable of diagnosing damage, now a hollowed out husk half melted on the top of an elevator, either to remain there forgotten or to burn in the inevitable fire. But despite that, it's crazy to think that technically, Dollie was Mimic's favorite toy. Really think about it. He spent a lot longer controlling her than he did with Jackie or Big Top, and only ditched her once he had no choice, not even shedding her once she was severely melted. And this could be because of how much trouble Mimic had with Jackie and Big Top. He struggles with Jackie's arms, he fumbles with Big Top's thighs, not being able to follow Arnold into tighter areas. Dollie's only real problem was her legs, and he figured out a workaround as soon as he climbed in. Not a great one, but one. And because of that, technically Dollie is the most dangerous out of all the suits that Mimic puts on. Neither Jackie nor Big Top, or any of the fabric suits, would have survived that molten magma and held up long enough to take that elevator ride to infinity. Dollie's story is over. But there's a few more things we have left to cover before we're done. Firstly, there is a collectible based off of Dollie, the Junior Nurse Kit. Plastic medical accessories, the doctor toys. Play as a real medical professional, ages 3 to 6. Sadly, David was still within this age range when he passed. That's a fun fact for ya. The kit has a nurse on it that's clearly based off of Dollie, and why I say it's based off of her and that she's not based off of it is because the nurse on the kit has a shock pad on her hand. This detail alone leans more on Dollie being the inspiration for the toy. Otherwise, why would the nurse have a random shock pad on her hand that was then apparently refit into Dollie? You feel me? You feel me. The nurse kit is one of the collectibles required for getting the secret ending, as it's used in Moon.exe. Dollie also appears in the Moon.exe game like Jackie and Big Top do. After you successfully confront Big Top, you head through the door into the doll hospital where Dollie stands with a broken elephant and duck. If you talk to her, she will say, "My dollies are all broken," she cries. "I cannot fix them, so I will fix you." She grabs you, then Moon appears and grabs you from Dollie's clutches. "You're not allowed in here," he screams as he pushes you out of the world. But if you collected the Junior Doctor's kit in the real world, it will be in the room and you can pick it up and use it to repair the animatronics. After which you talk to Nurse Dollie. "You fixed my dollies," the nurse says. "My work is done." She then leaves the doll hospital happy forevermore. A sweet ending, but alas, a far cry from Dollie's final resting place. Speaking of, will we see Dollie again? Well, we kind of already have. And no, I'm not talking about the Carnival Nurse voiceover from the Repair Helpy minigame in Help Wanted 2. I'm talking about someone else. Circus Baby. It's clear that there's a lot of similarities between Dollie and Baby, and I'm not just talking about them sharing a voice actress. Their build is very similar, with Dollie and Jackie clearly being the predecessor to the Fun Times plated designs. And though Jackie is a clown and has pigtails, Dollie is the one who looks more or less like the basis that Circus Baby was built off of. I can't say that Baby is a variant of Dollie, but I can say that there was some inspiration there. That baby's bulky, cutesy design was likely inspired by the sweetly thick-skinned nurse. At least... Oh my god. What the hell? Get off. That was a spider. Okay, he's running away. Okay. At least, both of them seem adept with a scooper. So technically, Dollie lives on, and she never lived in the first place. She wasn't alive, and none of what happened to her hurt at all. But there's still something really sad about Dollie, and it's hard to put my finger on what. She is like a doll, like when you see a dirty or broken doll that was once loved and is now abandoned in the trash. Dress missing, hair matted, and you know it'll never be loved again. It's doomed for the furnace eventually, or to sit in a trash pit forgotten and left to decay. Sure, it doesn't feel, but it carries feelings. It's sad to think of what it once was before it was used and thrown away. You think it must have had a hard life, even if it didn't have one. And I think that's how I feel about Dollie. Maybe because of just how awful her degradation was. Maybe because she started off sounding so sweet. Like with those old forgotten toys, which we tend to attribute feelings to when they don't have any, when there aren't any. Dollie didn't feel herself getting ripped off of her track. She didn't feel anything when Mimic forced her to hunt Arnold until she broke herself. She didn't feel anything when she pulled herself out of that melted pit, and she didn't feel anything when she was left on that elevator. None of it hurt, but it was certainly painful to watch. So what do I think of Dollie? Well, this might be a hot take, but I think Dollie might be the best animatronic in Secret of the Mimic. Not counting the Mimic, because him being everyone makes things complicated. But she's definitely the best of the three featured animatronics, if you take into account how much more detail she gets. We see what she was made to do and understand it completely. We see her characterization both with and without the Mimic. We see her degrade into a creepier and creepier state. First as an automated automaton, then as a toddling oversized cockeyed doll, and then as a horrendously melted monster chasing at your heels. It's very close to what happened with Big Top, but I think Dollie followed through a little more, largely because she had a longer segment devoted to her than the one Big Top had. Sure, Big Top snuck in at the end, but Dollie's was just an ongoing roller coaster. Heck, I'd go out on a limb and say that Dollie was more effective as a villain than a good chunk of our fan-favorite animatronics. There's just so many layers to her, and this is coming from someone who 100% went into Secret of the Mimic thinking Dollie was going to be the boring that other one, and who is pleased to have been wrong. Dollie did well. Hopefully she's recycled into a new form someday. If not a new Dollie or a baby, then maybe some super strong rebar. Anywho, thank you for watching.